Welcome, everyone. Hi, this is Lisa Redamozo from the Nosotros Education Center. Hey, Brenda. Thank you for joining us for our session here. I'm going to start this in just a second. I want to remind everyone that you should have received a Google Drive a link to the Google Drive in the email that Zoom sent you. Okay, and also you want to, I'm trying to see where I can now bring up my presentation. Don't you know it always is something here? Oh, there's so many buttons here. Okay, here we are. So if you go to, I believe I'm showing the Google Drive, right? Okay, great. So there's a link and you'll see all these resources here. And I started off with just a couple, Louise, and all of a sudden I said, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? So I went crazy here. And these are all free resources for y'all to have, plus the slide deck that I'm going to go through right now, and then also Louisa's slide deck. And we're going to get started here, but I wanted to make sure, and we're going to put in the chat to make sure you have a link to this from the Google Drive. And we'll have the recording of this session up via a blog post. And I think we can actually, yeah, that'll be the best way for y'all to get that information. So anyway, just wanted to cover that real quick in case people were wondering where is everything. Okay, so let me go ahead and get started here. Donna, did you have a poll? We were talking about maybe asking people how long they've been with Talent Search.
Yeah, I do. I can call that up.
Okay, well, I'm trying to get everything. You know, Luis, the more windows I have, the more confusing things get. I'm thinking about downsizing to just one window when I present, so then I'm not looking literally lost in Zoom here. Okay, so thanks, Donna. If you wouldn't mind, y'all, if you could just, so we can read the room, just kind of get a insight into how long you guys have worked in Talent Search. You'll hear in a second how old I am. And I mean, it's just amazing. I blinked and the years went by. So a couple more seconds here. And we do have the more than 15 years listed there. So let me see. And then we also have how many years have you worked in Trio? So some of y'all, might have worked in another Trio program before. So that's what that means. And then, so overall, and then how many with Talent Search? So let's see how many people have responded. Pretty much 81% participation rate. Thank you for doing that, y'all. Gives us information and kind of we can add into our presentation as we go along. And so here we have, we have folks. We do have some of y'all like us, more than 15 years, and some people less than 6 months. And then overall in Trio, we have folks, the same thing. We have one person more than 15 years. So great. Okay, thank you so much. I think you all can see that. We share the results and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, you should be seeing my presentation here. This session here is on implementing effective college readiness curriculum for Talent Search. Real excited that for y'all could be with us today. This is the perfect time to dive into this as you're probably thinking about a couple of things here. You're probably planning for next year and also working on a certain document called a proposal. And this may tie in very nicely into that. I'm always about if I'm going to do something, if I have to produce something or work on something, I'm going to try to figure out another use for it, right? So I can concurrently be working on something. All right, so I'm Lisa Redamozo. I'm the founder and executive director of Nosotros Education Center. And I'm also very, very pleased to be co-presenting with my friend Luis, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. So Luis, take it away.
Yeah, my name is Luis Perez. I'm the founder and CEO of Pre-Degree College Readiness Curriculum. And just my entire background's in education. Started off as a teacher, and I had the privilege of running a talent search program as well as an upward bound program. So when Lisa said talent search is her favorite, the truth is I have they're both in my heart. I care about UB and talent search equally just as much, but love Trio. Absolutely love Trio.
You're torn between the two,
I'm
right?
torn.
It's like you can't pick a favorite child, right?
Exactly. That's what it is.
Well, great. Thank you so much for joining us. And, um, it was, we met at a conference when we were both vendors and realized, and I think we'd met before because you were in Trio also. How long have you been in Trio, Luis?
Um, you're right. The years pass by. I've
Mm-hmm.
been working with Trio probably 8 years now,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
guess.
Yeah, so it's been a minute. So we met and started talking about, you know, how it's so hard for talent search people with no money and no staff to get everything done. And so that's why I was so happy to connect with him and see what he was able to offer. Cause I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. Cause I don't have time to do this and I need to do it. And I want to do it, but I don't have the time. Um, because time is money. Anyway, just to remind you, our mission in NEC here is to promote the effectiveness and impact of TRIO and other educational opportunity programs through specialized technical assistance and support services. NEC's been around for about 20 years. I first was a director with the Boys and Girls Clubs, Talent Search, and then Upward Bound for over 11 years. And then, that started there in 94. So this is my 31st year in TRIO. I didn't think I'd last 30 days, let alone 31 years. So, surprise, surprise, if you told me then, Luis, that I'd be doing webinars and having my own consulting company based of helping TRIO programs across the country, I would have said, you're crazy. No way that could actually happen. I'm barely hanging on here. I don't know if I'm going to make it past this year. But here we are, NEC services. We provide a lot of allowable cost services, which are the things here highlight, the items here, external project-based evaluations, compliance assessments, onboarding professional development trainings, database customization, policies, procedures is a big deal, and also helping projects get up and running or projects that have been running, kind of getting them back on track or improving the quality of their services. Those are all allowable costs. What are not allowable costs that we offer that we're actually more well known for are the proposal writing workshop or proposal writing services, data collection, those kind of things. If you want more information about NEC, you can just scan that QR code and get there. But the other thing that we want to do, like we said in our mission statement, is to offer folks a clearinghouse of free resources. I know I've been there with Talent Search. We had no money, so I was always looking for freebies. So please, 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 we have a YouTube channel that has all our free webinars. This is a free webinar. The resources here that I'm showing you are free. You can take and use them to your heart's desire. We do have services that we charge for, but I always wanted to make sure we dedicated time and effort to making available free resources and free webinars so that you all can, access those. Because I know I've been there, done that, had no money, or trying to, serve more students and just make it easier to get resources. So in this session, though, particular to this free webinar, we're going to explore, we're going to talk about how we can plan and implement a structured college readiness curriculum tailored for talent search participants specifically. As you all know, the key for talent search is to get organized and be structured. You have to be structured in a program that is serving hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students. We all literally have to get on the same page and in a way be structured, but at the same time be able to be flexible, right? That sounds kind of crazy, but it's the truth. Have some structure, some planning, but then some wiggle room, because that's how we are in TRIO. We got to pivot. Not everything or most things don't go as planned, so you have to be able to, reorganize things on the fly. So we're going to understand how to align college readiness services with talent search regulations and students' individual service plans. You may call it something else. Some people call it an IEP. I prefer to call it an individualized student plan or service plan because that's what it is. We're also going to review examples of grade level lesson content that address academic preparation, college awareness, and the non-cognitive skill development, which we've always done in Talent Search. I didn't know that's what it was called, but we've always done that since the beginning of Talent Search way back when. And then we're going to talk about some curriculum strategies to reduce staff planning time using turnkey lesson materials and activities. Okay, that's the whole purpose. Time is money. Okay, so just a little regulatory stuff, or actually, this is in the regulations when they talk about how does the secretary make an award, grant an award. They talk about the plan of operation in the regulations. They tell you there are 30 points, and there's a specific question in the plan of operation that I would argue, or I think successfully, that is a regulatory issue that we need to talk about, not a grant writing issue, but specifically a regulatory issue. What is the plan for providing the services delineated in 643.4 as appropriate based on the project's assessment of each participant's need for services? You get 10 points for that in the upcoming proposal, but a lot of y'all are working off, or all of y'all are working off of something that's already been written in this current cycle. So that question in there and your proposal, you need to look at right now to see in reality how close you are to that plan. And it could have been that that was a plan that worked to get you funded, but that plan doesn't mean it's going to work in reality. We hope it does, but the minute you find out it's not, you want to make sure to revisit that right now for next year, and also possibly what you're writing on, proposal you're writing, to make sure it matches what you're currently doing. So what I mean is you want to start thinking about the plan to assess each participant's need for project services and the plan to deliver services. What I mean by that is the methodology and the logistics offered. I mean, are you going to do on-site, online, virtual, and who, how, when, how often, that kind of thing. And that kind of leads us to, once we figure out, where and maybe how and who, this is the what, which is the focus of the curriculum and services provided per grade level. Look at the regulation or the question here. It says you need to have a plan, a service plan for each student based on their need. So that means we need to get structured and start looking at coming up with a focus of curriculum services provided per grade level. Because in just a little while, I'm going to bring up the definition for talent search and the regulations that brings up this thing about grade level. Where is she getting that? I didn't make that up. I couldn't make that up. I'm not that smart or to make that up. But it comes from the regulations. So I want to use that, and because I want to make sure I'm in compliance every year, because this is where it is. 643.7 in the regulations again. What major definitions apply? And sometimes this gets lost, because if you look at your talent search regulations, this section has a bunch of definitions. And for some reason, you would think this would be number one under definitions under the title, but it's not. It's like toward the bottom, so it gets missed a lot. So I want to bring this up again. A participant means an individual who, number one, is determined to be eligible to participate in the project under 643.3. And what is that? That's when they say, oh, US citizen or permanent resident, they're at least 10 years of age or completed the fifth grade, and they have to be low income, first generation, and also it showed that they have potential for post-secondary success. Okay, but that's on the front end. We have a regulation that says, look, a talent search student cannot be considered a participant to be counted on your APR at the end of the year if they haven't done number one on the front end, and it doesn't say or, but it says and number two, receives project services, and I did the underlining of the S under services, not them, designed for his or her age or grade level. So they're telling you, and if you want to count that toward your 500 that you have to serve, or your 750 you have to serve, whatever, not only do they have to be eligible when they were brand new, but at the end of every year, you need to show that that student received at least 2 services. And not just any 2 services, but those had to be 2 services that were designed for either the age, or I prefer to use the grade level. So that means I got to do some planning. I got to come up with a listing of services that we have decided, and hopefully we've used something as a basis, like College Board or some curriculum that's based on, what, this is what experts say students should receive at each grade level to prepare for college and financial aid, financial aid and college enrollment. And so you want to base it off of that. You don't want to come up with your own. That's too much work, to totally come up with anything on your own. So I always latched on to College Board and now Pre-Degree and some other resources to ahead of time go ahead and start coming up with a listing of specific services that we say as a project should be for the 6th graders, should be the 7th graders, 8th grade. It doesn't mean that they have to be different services for each grade level. It just means the focus. Because you certainly wouldn't take your 6th graders through a detailed FAFSA step by step, because it's not appropriate. So this tells me, I need to make sure I've got a plan ahead of time for each grade level. And then when we are working during the year, making sure that our activity timeline is focused on making these things occur, or forcing, trying to force the interaction, so that when it's all said and done, to be legal and to count this on our APR, I can hopefully say that all these students, like my students in the 10th grade, received at least 2 services that was on the 10th grade menu. Okay, so that's what you want. I mean, remember this, and I go over and over it because people will always ask, where does it say that students have to receive 2 services? You will never see the word TWO, 2, anywhere in the regulations. But this is where the wording here, services, the Office of Inspector General, when they did audit talent search programs back in the day, they went ahead and used this definition, and they interpreted it as, oh, that means they have to receive at least 2 services. It could be 1 contact, 2 services, different services. Do you see that? It doesn't mean 2 contacts. Nowhere in the regulations will you ever get any information about contacts. The word's not available. I mean, you could do a search, you'll never find contacts, but you find services. So this is my focus now, to make sure I write a plan and set up a calendar so I have some intent to provide every grade level with a certain set of services. And I plan my calendar so that we have maybe 5 or 6 chances. And in a perfect world, I wish all my 10th graders would receive all 5 or 6 services that were intended. But when it's all said and done, to be in compliance, I just need them to have received at least 2. All right. So again, what services does a project provide? When you click your the slide deck, when you have access to it, it'll open up into the regulations that breaks down all the required and permissible services, just in case. But I'm not going to go into that because we don't have all the time in the world. But I am going to show you here an example of a plan to provide services. So here you should see, and you have access to this in the Google Drive. And it just is breaking it down, the objectives, and for this project, the services that they say they're going to provide to meet that objective. Okay, and these are all combination of required and permissible services. So that would be the first step, to set that up or to update this. Maybe you had something in the proposal, copy and paste it, work on it, change the names of things that they've changed, update it if needed. You can always update stuff as long as you still end up working on the objective and doing the allowable and permissible services, or the required and permissible services. But at no time do you have to stick to everything that's in the proposal, because you have to make changes. Okay, it just makes sense that you have to make changes. Anyway, just wanted to show you that. That's in the Google Drive. Back to the presentation. I'm going to keep going here. All right, and so I talked a second ago about, one of the other things you want to look at is the way in which you provide those services. Okay, we all have to do financial literacy, or it's a required service. Doesn't mean all students have to receive it, but we have to show that we are ready to serve that on demand. We need to have it ready on demand, for example. So there's financial literacy, there's financial aid information, and there's also the permissible services. So that's what we all, in a sense, have to provide. But now what you want to also base your project design is on some sort of best practice or research. And I used to think that was ridiculous for talent search, because, I thought, what could what we do possibly be considered research based? And now we do have something to say that it's based on research, because what we do is to develop, big time, we've always done this, just didn't know we were doing it, is to help students develop non-cognitive skills. And this is just an example of something you can say very quickly to describe to someone what's your plan for the delivery of services, or your methodology for certain grade levels. For example, maybe the project here focuses on non-cognitive skills building for students in grades 6 through 11th through group workshops. But then they also focus on providing appreciative advising via individual sessions for their 12th graders, using more of a case management approach. So you see, you kind of have to treat these students differently too. The 6th through 11th graders, bless their hearts, I love them to death and they help us get our numbers. but they only give you credit on one objective, the first one on persistence. The rest of your objectives are senior based. And the last one, of course, is on seniors who graduated 6 years ago and went to college when they're supposed to. So it makes sense to someone from the outside that you should be spending more time or treat your 12th graders a little bit differently than the 6th through 11th graders because they, you know, they will count toward most of the objectives. Okay. So anyway, just a little language there to kind of get into the mindset of, okay, we all have to do the same thing, but you might want to be a little bit more clear about your intent or your methodology on how you handle all these groups of students. Now, just in case you weren't sure what non-cognitive skills were about, and by the way, in the Google Drive, I have an actual easy to read, because I like those easy to read research papers. In the Google Drive, if you click the link in the previous slide, when you click that, it'll take you to research on what the research behind non-cognitive skills, and also the research about appreciative advising, in case you want to do a little bit of follow-up work there, reading there. But non-cognitive skills basically are those behaviors, attitudes, and personal attributes that are essential for success in both academics and life. And here's just some examples. And do a lot of these things look familiar, y'all? We do a lot of these things. 30 years ago, we did these things. We just didn't know it was non-cognitive skills building. I didn't know that. We didn't know there was research on it. I used to say, hey, when someone asked me, like my non-trio friends in their other jobs, so what do y'all do? And I was like, well, we're kind of like cheerleaders for college and financial aid. I mean, I can't pay for tutoring. I can't pay for classes. But I kind of encourage them and kind of do goal setting and all that stuff. And they were like, oh, okay. And now I know it focuses on non-cognitive skills and there's research behind it. So anyway, this is a way also in case you want to explain to someone in some sort of document or to your target school folks a little bit about, if they don't know, or to remind them, or to remind you all that non-cognitive skills are linked to academic performance. So here are some of the reasons, why it works so well and why we can justify, we're just not talent search cheerleaders. There's actually, for college and financial aid and careers, this is what we work on. We're helping students learn these skills that'll cross over to the academics, okay, and make them successful. And here's some more reasons why, and issues that we're helping them, with. And the impact on their outcomes. It's a strong predictor of college retention and graduation, helps our TRIO eligible students navigate challenges and barriers they face. It should reduce some academic anxiety and build up their confidence, and promote self regulation and decision-making skills, which we tend to do with our middle school students, right? But then they do nicely align with talent search just by accident, right? We made the connection that we've always been doing this because it does all this here, supports college readiness, fosters resilience, and equips students for life skills beyond high school. And that's what we're about in talent search. So from now on, if anyone asks you, what do? You know what to say, that it's based on research. And internally, we can say, look, we need to focus on providing financial literacy and academic advising with a focus on building non-cognitive skills. So now you're just not doing a certain workshop, but you do it in a certain way or method, or stress certain things or add on certain things that are appropriate. And so here are some strategies to develop those non-cognitive skills. I think everybody has dabbled in these things. Doesn't mean you have to have a mentorship program, but that's great because that becomes a program within a program. So if you got one going on, great. Would I create one now? Depends. But I certainly have done goal setting workshops, time management, growth mindset activities. We do a lot of those things, okay? So if all this is, making sense to you and you're on the right track, great. But now we take it to the next step, and now we talk about, how does this happen? When does it happen? Now that we determined, look, we have an individual service plan based on our calendar to make sure we try to set it up so that we have as many visits possible. We plan, we schedule, so we can get the magic 2 for everybody at least. Then we talked about, in what manner, how do we treat the 6th through 11th graders versus the seniors? And, take it another step as to when we present financial literacy, we're always have a focus on doing an icebreaker or another activity that focuses on non-cognitive skills building, and then we kind of include it or focus on it, even when we talk about financial literacy, okay? So when you're talking about your plan to deliver services, it could be as simple as explaining it to somebody in these bullets here. A project advisor's plan, and you always want to say plan. You don't want to say will or must, because then you've painted yourself into a corner, because everything in the proposal or in your annual plan internally, your policies procedures manual, is an intent. They plan to meet once every 6 weeks. You got to have something like that. Maybe it's once every 9 weeks. We have to have a plan. Does everything go according to plan? Probably not. Want to at least have a plan and then modify it or adjust it as needed. With assigned 6th through 11th graders participants via small group workshops, and I know that's going to be done to build non-cognitive skills, to offer the services listed on their individual service plan, an ISP, and scheduled to occur based on the Town Search Project's activity timeline. So now when you get the slide deck, and if you click anything that's underlined, that'll take you to our Google Drive, and you will see, just to help you out, because you might be wondering, what the heck is she talking about, individual service plan? Well, in the Google Drive, you'll be able to see for every grade level, we came up with an individual service plan. Initially, they look the same for all initially side by side, but what's different is that it says a different grade level at the top of it, and then different services are checked off. Slightly different. That's the plan. And this is where we basically create the calendar or the timeline based on those individual service plans that are really individual per grade level, to make sure we set it up so it's going to happen. You click Talent Search Project Activity Timeline, you will also receive, or takes you to the Google Drive, to a sample. We have a couple of them there. I think I linked 2 of them for a timeline, in case you're wondering what we're talking about. Okay, so anyway, I'm not going to take you through that right now, but when you click it and hyperlink it, you'll be able to do that. And so then we shift over to what we say we're going to do with our 12th graders. They have to be treated differently. In this case, they plan to meet monthly with their assigned 12th graders, and I should have put case management. Before it was in group workshops. This is, well, it says individual technical assistance. But this is where we now shift to doing in-person and virtual meetings, because they're older students now, right? They don't have to be, a lot of them maybe just go to school half day. We miss them, so we can follow up with them virtually. And we start doing stuff specific to them as listed on their individual service plan, which is like a prescription of what services they need to receive. Then in the summer, the plan is to continue to meet with them at least twice a month, either in person or virtual, to finish off or to follow up or to keep encouraging them, or to do college adjustment activities, anything and everything to make sure that they end up going to college in the fall. And I know that's difficult if you don't have any advisors during the summer, because maybe you're 10 months, but someone's going to have to take the lead and make sure that something doesn't happen. It could be an argument with a parent or with a boyfriend or girlfriend the night before they're supposed to go to orientation or get their books or something, and it all goes to nothing. Or they haven't signed that financial aid form that they should have turned in or whatever. And so we have to, even the students that in May, it looks like they have everything put together, they might have forgotten or didn't have someone to remind them, well, you got to get your shots, because they won't let you on campus without that immunization, shot, or that test or something, or that deposit you were supposed to take care of. Okay. So here's where we shift into what we're actually, the what is presented. That we talked about the setup, the how, now it's to the what. So the project implements a focus of curriculum and scheduled number of contacts planned to offer the services outlined in each participant's individual service plan. We're emphasizing on assisting the 6th through 11th graders to remain enrolled and persist to the next grade level, and helping the 12th graders to graduate with regular, rigorous, and eventually go to college and graduate, right? So just going to show you very briefly, that's what's in the Google Drive before I turn it over to my friend here. And so here's an example of a focus of curriculum and scheduled visits. So this is the plan of what grade level, what's the focus of the curriculum, the time frame and frequency, and the number of scheduled individual meetings or workshops. When you get a chance to look at this in more detail, you'll see that the intensity gets to be more as the student gets older, not the other way around. Okay. And then certain services are offered to everybody. So I know it may be hard to read right now, but you'll have time to look at that and see that. And so that's what we mean by having this sort of plan, where this is the foundation of the individual service plan. For the ninth graders, you'll see these items there checked off. Okay, check like this is supposed to happen. And so then we look at our calendar and make sure we schedule those events or those meetings to make sure, to try in our way to make sure it happens. Okay, but it's not always perfect, but you got to have a plan. Then we get into the nitty gritty about what curriculum we're using for those subjects or those workshop topics. And so, for example, here's a service chart where it takes it to the next level. It breaks it down into goals by grade level. And this is another example of an individual service plan, but they broke it down. You know, the sixth graders, they have a academic coaching in some areas, they have those sub activities and so forth. So this is another viewpoint. This is one way to see the structured overall individual service plan set up per grade level. And I like this so much that I may use it in something very soon, because it gives the reader, the person reviewing this and yourselves as staff or in your policies procedures manual in one glance, what you plan to provide everybody in what specific areas. And these things here are considered those subjects, you see how they're color coded. It's a great way to also showcase this to your target school counselors and teachers that want to know, what the heck are you teaching? What's going on? And then, we may not share this with them, or we could, but this is where it gets into the detail. How many sessions are planned that should match what's on your overall activity timeline, the topic, and the source, the curriculum source. And see, they don't just use one thing for everything, one thing for all their workshops. They just switch around and they actually do the session and so forth. So you'll get to see that. There's one for every grade level and what they utilize and in what session. Okay. So that's just something I'm sure you have it. Maybe you just haven't organized in that way, but we found that we needed to do it that way in order to get things done, so to speak. Okay. So moving on. This is where what you provide, since it takes so much time and effort to do everything else, the least of your worries is to actually develop the workshop. You want to use structured and established curriculum to present these grade level appropriate workshops with hopefully content based on effective practices or research, because time is money. If we could do it, then I should be like Louise selling curriculum, right? But I don't have time to do that. That's not my specialty. It's an allowable cost. It's mentioned in the regulations. I should have copied and pasted the actual regulation. You got any potential carryover, you want to use that, as long as you can have show that you used it this summer for a group of kids. You're not stockpiling for the future, but use it. You want to outsource to the experts that have time and effort to develop the curriculum for you. Otherwise, we would be doing it ourselves, right? So now we shift from developing curriculum to actually service facilitators. We're presenting, we're getting the students to show up, and we want to make sure that you have materials and resources that are adaptable, so that sometimes you could do the traditional in-person versus virtual, or doing both if you have to. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So you can never just put all your eggs in one basket, right? So again, sample, of topics that should be included in your college career financial aid and financial literacy curriculum, because all these things listed up here are required talent search services. It doesn't mean that everybody has to receive it, but it does mean that you need to show that you were ready and able to present, or on demand, make sure that that's available. And we try to maybe internally make students, most of our students exposed to, whether you like it or not. Every workshop at the very end may include a financial aid activity or something about financial literacy. You kind of focus on that. But here are just some of the topics. I don't think I'm bringing up anything different that y'all aren't used to seeing or presenting on. But these are things that would be considered a part of the connected to being an activity that falls under a required service. Okay. And I think that takes me to, I hope I didn't take too much time here. Let me get over here. And I think that takes us, yeah, to the very end. So I'm going to stop sharing, Luis. And this is kind of a segue to go ahead and have you talk about pre-degree resources.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me share my screen.
Okay.
So I'm excited to be talking about curriculum. I truly believe that effective college readiness curriculum can make all the difference for your students. Just before I speak, I want to say I did share the presentation. It is in the Google Drive. And I did share basically a handout. So it has a lot of the content that I'm going to speak about. And it organizes it really well. And it has a QR code that has more free resources. So it's not just the handout that you're getting, but resources along with it. And before I go into my presentation, I kind of want to talk about this self-assessment. So think of yourself, think of your program, think of any time you presented or given a workshop or just provided content to students. And you don't have to say this out loud, just think to yourself, place a check or in your head, a check of any statements that apply to you. I use a variety of teaching methods and materials to address different learning styles. If you do, fantastic. And if you don't, that's something we have to work on. Next, I provide my students with opportunities to play, to move, and to discuss with peers. Next one, I regularly assess student understanding through pretests, quiz, discussions, etc. And then finally, I feel confident when it comes to knowing what to teach and how I should teach it. And then something, again, you could think to yourself, if there's one thing I can improve about how I or we implement our program's curriculum, what would it be? Because even the most experienced programs can improve their college readiness curriculum, whether it's the topics they teach or how to present it. But just thinking about that is a good start for a lot of the content that we're going to discuss today. So let me put it in presentation mode. Perfect. I already introduced myself. Just points to
Luis,
emphasize
do me a
again.
favor.
Yes,
Can
ma'am.
you put up your volume a little bit more? I don't know if
Oh,
it's
yes,
me or just a,
I can give you.
maybe because I'm usually yelling here.
How's this?
Yes, it's better for me
Perfect.
at least. Can y'all hear him okay? Maybe it's just me.
All right, let me start from the beginning. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Just I come from Trio. I am Trio. I had the opportunity to run a talent search program in Coastal Bend College, and an Upward Bound program at Palo Alto College on the south side of San Antonio. So absolutely love it. The only thing better than those jobs is this job where I can work with dozens and dozens of programs and still work with students and still do a lot of cool stuff. So the slide says meet Vanessa, but the truth is this was me when I came into Trio and Talent Search specifically. My first day of the job, they handed me the grant and said, go ahead. But like Vanessa, like a lot of y'all, she serves hundreds of students. She wants to improve engagement, but she has to piece together resources from all over the place. She's short on time. She has new staff members. Really, she's in need of a roadmap. Her staff's in need of a roadmap. Her students are in need of a roadmap. And she needs effective college readiness curriculum. So what does an effective curriculum look like? Before I share my answers, I want to hear from you all, because there are a lot of characteristics that contribute to effective curriculum. So what is one characteristic that helps? And you can just put it in the chat. What does effective college readiness curriculum look like? And I'll give you all minutes to think about it. But one characteristic of an effective college readiness curriculum. Completion. All right. We definitely want it to be comprehensive. I think that's what you're talking about. We want it complete. Definitely it has to be engaging. That's something we always preach at pre-degree. Pre and post testing for sure. We want to assess students' knowledge before we even start talking to them and giving them information. But once we're done, we want to make sure that they picked up what we put down for sure. Yeah, those are all easy to implement. Those are all great answers. Y'all hit the nail on the head. A more detailed answer, yeah, that you're able to apply it. Well, we've come up, our team at pre-degree, effective curriculum includes all of these. Oh, excuse me. At the very base of it, it has to meet your program's needs and your students' needs. It has to be comprehensive. You have to provide opportunities for engagement, like that was mentioned. You have to assess comprehension, especially for trio programs, right? It has to be flexible, evolving, and differentiated. It has to be clear, organized, and visually appealing. I'm going to break each one down, but this is just an overview for you all so you can see if your curriculum has any of these holes, it could really affect student success. So at the very base, we want to make sure that you meet your objectives, it fits your budget, and it's a good fit for your program, because every program is unique. Every program has small differences. And Lisa talked to this earlier. Your program might have the opportunity to meet with students a lot. You might have your own classroom on campuses, or like a lot of programs, you might be in a corner of a library. You might have to deliver a lot of your services virtually just because of how far campuses are, or it could be hybrid, or you could have a really strong program with strong participation where you have the opportunity to see students for academic Saturdays. And even I know talent search programs do summer programming, even though it's not mandatory. A lot of programs do that. So whatever curriculum you pick, at the very base of it, should fit your program and your program's needs and your students' needs. If you look at different college readiness companies, there's going to be some combination of these topics, right? And maybe the name changes a little bit. We have social emotional learning, executive functioning. Other people call it non-cognitive skills. We have academic or classroom support, financial literacy, and then college and career preparation and transition. To have a comprehensive college readiness curriculum, you want to make sure that you have these and you cover these topics. At this point, I always like to have the people I'm presenting to you get up. It's a little different virtually. I like to do something called a gallery walk, where I get a huge poster board and I put one on each wall, and I give participants sticky notes, right? And it's really good to learn from each other, right? If you're deciding you're going to take this, you're going to undertake creating your own curriculum, knowing what to teach and what topics to teach could be really informative. Really, we don't have the capacity to do that. We don't have the time to do that. So I want you to look through these categories: SEL, social emotional learning, academic support, financial literacy, college preparation, and transition. Just pick one. And then think of the most effective lesson, the one that you see really helps students, that your program executes throughout the year. And it could be anything. It could be financial literacy, it could be an academic support, college preparation and transition. And this is going to be our version of a gallery walk. But again, in the chat, if you could put one lesson that you provide to students, and I'll go back to this, one lesson whether it's an SEL lesson, an academic support lesson, a financial literacy lesson, or a college preparation lesson. If you could put the title of that lesson in the chat, I'd really appreciate it. And maybe your program can see different lessons that other programs provide. Can help you fill your calendar, understand things that students really benefit from. And I appreciate y'all doing this for me. So one lesson, any category you want. And while you're thinking, Lisa did a great job with the non-cognitive skills topics that she provided earlier. She talks about perseverance, she talks about goal setting. There's a lot of other ones. When you're feeling down. If I get some participation, I'd really appreciate that. If y'all could throw out some lessons that really work for your students and program.
Luis, do you mean lessons or curriculum, or do you mean like topics?
Like if there's one thing that you present on, one thing that you teach, one topic. So if you're like, oh, we have a really good lesson on feeling homesick, right? And we provide that to our students. Yeah, setting measurable goals. So like a goal setting lesson. Are there any other lessons that work really well for programs? How to bounce back from failures. Yeah, that's huge. College adjustment. Perfect. Yeah, so whether you decide to create your own curriculum or purchase a curriculum or try and piece together curriculum, one suggestion I have is learning from others. If these are lessons that you haven't presented on, they all sounded really good. Like you definitely, I always like to start with goal setting. Bouncing back from failures is something that a lot of students struggle with. Great lessons. Understanding your comfort zone and how to step out of it. Financial aid, loans versus grants. Perfect. Yeah, so whenever you do purchase curriculum, create a curriculum, make sure that you cover these 4 topics, because I said it's pretty universal when you go to different companies, when you talk to really established programs, that students are getting content from each of these categories. After meeting students' needs, you want to make sure that your curriculum is comprehensive. And you know what, Lisa did a great job talking about your focus of your curriculum, your scheduled services. In education, a lot of times we call that scope and sequence. You want to make sure that you have a scope and sequence for your program. Whether you get together in the summer with all your staff members and you create that, whether you purchase it through a company or whether it's a combination of both those things, make sure it's grade specific and you have your calendar ready for the year. Because if you try to piece it together throughout the year, you are going to have goals and you are going to have gaps in your curriculum. And we all have gaps in our knowledge, but gaps in your college readiness curriculum can really be detrimental to your students, right? If you just somehow didn't talk to them about study skills, that could really affect a student. If you never covered the college application process, that could derail your students. We want to make sure that this is as comprehensive as possible. Moving on, and y'all said this too, which was perfect. You want to provide opportunities for engagement. In education, engagement is the degree of attention, curiosity, interest, and optimism and passion that students show when they're learning or being taught. According to a Gallup poll that followed over 500,000 students across 37 states, 80% of students in elementary were characterized as engaged, but that continues to drop grade level after grade level. That dropped down to 60% in middle school. And I'm sure every program here works with high school students. That dropped even further to 40% for high school students. So one of your biggest challenges is make sure that your students are engaged. We know that engagement isn't just a reflection of success in school, but a contributor to it. And I work with dozens of programs. A lot of programs are great with engagement, and some programs I see a lot of they're aware of the challenges, right? Because I feel like each year there are more and more distractions for students. But what's important to remember, we know engagement contributes to success, but it's important to remember that you contribute to engagement. And there's so many different okay, great. We have a question. If you're offering all of these services, but some students don't show up, how do you recommend getting the students who miss some supplemental resources so they still get that information? That's a great question, and I definitely want to answer it before the end of the presentation. So I will go back to that. Like I was saying, though, there's so many different ways to increase engagement. And like some of the big ones, make sure that your lessons have real world connections because everything that you're teaching is definitely applicable to them. Make sure you build relationships. You want to make sure that you're genuinely interested in your students and excited that they're there. The students can feel when you're not. You want to make sure that they have some autonomy in their learning, that you provide options on what they're learning, what colleges you visit, things like that. But what I'm going to focus on today is active learning. So you've created a lesson, you've purchased the lesson. We want to make sure that when you're presenting, that these students are engaged. And I talked about all the other things where we're connected, active or autonomy, building relationships. A lot of that information is in the handout I gave, so it speaks more to it. But I really want to focus on active learning. So we created a lesson, we created a presentation, and we want to make sure that when we give that presentation, students are engaged. Every time I have a presentation, whether it's 5 to 10 minutes when I'm providing content to students or an hour plus, I look at these 4 things. And I want to make sure that if it's really short, 5 to 10 minutes, I apply one thing. If it's an hour, how can I implement all 4 of these things into my lesson? Go to the next slide. Do I provide opportunities for students to write? Do I provide opportunities for students to talk? Do I have opportunities for them to play? And am I just speaking for the whole time? Or is there an opportunity for students to get up and move? And here are just some suggestions on each. Writing, it could be a sentence starter. One reason I'm excited about college is blank, right? It could be exit tickets at the end of your presentation to make sure that they picked up what you put down. It could be a quick write, pair, share. When I say writing, I'm not talking paragraphs. I'm not talking essays. I'm talking about, do they have an opportunity to write a sentence or 2 down? Do we have students have an opportunity to talk? Because you don't want to talk the entire time. It could be a speed chat, which is kind of like speed dating, except it's academic. It could be a quick discuss this with your partner or the person to the left or right of you. It could be full-on class debates where everyone's getting engaged together. And then play. Can you create some sort of game? One game that's great for vocabulary is Headed to College. And if you go to our website, which was listed in the chat, we have a free template for that. So you can create your own vocabulary words and have students play that. Kahoot games are great, super easy. If you have 10 questions for students to answer, you could give them a quiz or you create a game out of it. One game I like to do is tic-tac-toe. Basically, I divide the class into 2 groups, give them a whiteboard, and then depending on your setup, you could have them write an extra on the board. I like to do a 3x3 grid where they write the answer, they run to a spot, and then if they got the answer correct, they get to keep that spot. If not, the other team gets that spot. There is another, oh, perfect. Thank you for listening to our website again. And then movement. The gallery walk I discussed earlier is a great way to get students to get up and move. It could be a sit up, stand up, sit down questions. If you have questions to ask students, just have them sit up and stand down. It's better than just asking the questions. It's better than giving them a quiz if you don't have to. And again, same thing with make your choice. I like to put an A, B, C, D on each side of the room. If I have multiple choice questions for them to review, they can get up, they can walk to whatever side of the room they think the answer is. This works really well when it's not content-based, but they have an opportunity to exercise their opinion. But anytime that you can get students to write, talk, play, and move, it really helps with engagement. Really, really helps. And then the top of our pyramid, each lesson, you want to assess comprehension. So many times you're worrying about the presentation, but you don't see if the students really learned the content that's there. And you want your students leaving whatever session, whatever lesson, with a stronger grasp of whatever it is you're trying to teach them. And assessing comprehension does not have to be a test. Again, it can be a simple exit ticket. If you're one-on-one, one-on-two, you can just ask students, hey, do you understand what I talked about? Can you explain this? You want to make sure that your curriculum is flexible, because with our programs, things change a lot, right? Schools may not allow us to get on campus a certain day. There might be an emergency. You might have to provide this information online instead of in person like you wanted to. You have to make sure it's evolving. You can create a perfect lesson, but each year things change. And with the current administration we have, we've had to make multiple changes to our curriculum. So every year, you make sure that you review your presentations and you're not giving your students old information. And then make sure it's differentiated. If you're servicing hundreds of students, they're all going to learn different ways, which is great if you speak to them and then give them opportunities to write and then give them opportunities to talk. We want to make sure that we're presenting this information in so many different ways. Anytime you can provide a video to reinforce what you taught, that works really, really well. Anytime they can practice or play, that really, really helps differentiate instruction. And then, of course, you want to be clear, concise, and you want to make sure that it's visually appealing and easy to go over. Our goal is to simplify everything. The college readiness process can be really difficult, especially for high school students who are doing this for the very first time. We want to make sure that they can easily find information, because just because you speak about it in January, they might not need it for months, right? They can easily find it. It's clear, it's simple, and it's for our students.
And Luis, you've got about 5 minutes, okay? Just letting you know.
Okay, I will wrap it up. And I've been looking at that timer, so I've been like, all right, let me get through this quickly. Some other things to consider when you're creating or finding curriculum. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. You want to use strategies that are evidence-based, that we've known, hey, these things work. They've worked for other people. They've worked for other programs and students. And we talk about this in the handout. So I kind of won't go into it too much, but always assess prior knowledge. Pre-test, post-test can save you so much information. It could save you lessons. It can save you hours if these students already know this information, or it can help you meet your students where they are. Other things you can do classroom polls, KWL charts, what you know, what you want to know, and then what you've learned afterwards, discussions. Make sure you set goals and your students set SMART goals, and that you state your objectives. And it's easy. Like, make sure before you teach students, say, hey, today we're going to be learning about X, Y, and Z. Before you leave, you need to know these things. Make sure students have the opportunity to collaborate with a partner, small groups, study groups, and then always monitor comprehension. And again, it does not have to be a test. It can be, but it can be as simple as a thumbs up, thumbs down, exit ticket, a question, just to make sure that students understand this information. With all of this that I presented to you, what you want to do is simplify things for yourself and your program. Use templates. Part of the free resources that we gave you were blank scope and sequence templates. So if you're planning with your team, you have blank templates by, I think it's by month, but definitely by grade level as well. Utilize AI. We also have one of the free resources are prompts that you can ask AI. And again, AI is like, it's not even a rough draft. It's a rough draft. But there are a lot of great prompts just to get you started. Again, pre-test and post-test can save you so much time and help you meet your students where they are. Any time that you can learn from other programs, do not reinvent the wheel. And then if it's in the budget, find a strong curriculum and purchase it, because that can make all the difference for your students. This is my spew. I'll stop for 1 minute. We do provide at pre-degree a lesson library with over 100 resources. It's presentations with presenter notes and opportunities for you to engage with your students. It's student handouts. It's lesson guides, assignments, and short videos. We also have grade-specific workbooks. Currently, we have 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. We also sell an activity kit with 45 low or no prep games and activities. I'm talking card games, board games, a lot of fun stuff in there. It's just a fun way to teach a lot of the stuff you need to teach, like interview skills, time management, resume building, being a leader, a whole bunch of college readiness content. And if you want us to come in and engage and work with your students, we do hands-on workshops as well. So we are always here to help you. I am going to end by doing two things: putting my information on the board in case you need it. I know our website's been posted, and then answering any questions.
I did put in,
So
the
I know,
question earlier, about,
Mhm.
what if students miss a
yeah,
workshop? And I just put something in already and also referred people over to the calendar at where we used to
yeah,
reserve the last week to do follow-up. And again, whatever curriculum you have, you may be able to follow up with some, catching them
yeah,
individually or in a
absolutely.
small group, or email it to them or send them to a platform or a Google Drive where you have those things. But Luis, in reality, sometimes students miss and they miss that workshop, you know?
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
we've got 5 or other events, and then next year we'll catch them with, for example, financial literacy at the next grade level. So it's not always perfect, right? We can't see everybody all the time. People will not show up to stuff. So we just do our
Yeah.
best.
So, and then just to add to that, there's so many different ways to get students involved that we talked about, having incentives, building relationships, but again, making sure that your curriculum is flexible so that if they don't meet it, you can just send them an email that reviews everything you covered. Some of our curriculum, again, you can print off as many handouts as you need. So you can still make sure that they get that information when you see them at schools, or whenever it is that you do meet up with them. I know I rushed this a lot. If you want any more information from us, feel free to send an email. It's on one of the slides, but we're offering 10% off for just attending this webinar. So if you do send me an email, let me know you saw me in this webinar. We'll make sure you get 10% off. And if you want to know more about our products and services, I'm happy to conduct a demo where we can dive into everything, our workbooks, our digital lessons. But thank y'all so much for your time. I loved being here and I love talking curriculum. That's what I do.
By the way, in the Google Drive, y'all will have, there's a couple of the free resources, so you can get a insight into the pre-degree curriculum, but you also have some information about the company. And again, please take advantage of the free resources there. And if you've got some carryover, consider, purchasing something for a curriculum that you could, if you use it this summer, then it's an allowable cost before the new year starts with a group of students. Also, their calendars in the Google Drive to kind of show you how you can follow up with students that don't show up. Because guess what? No one has 100% participation. So you could have some sort of plan to catch up with that. But please check out this PowerPoint that's in the Google Drive, and please follow up with Luis. He's made my life a whole bunch easier because now I can tell people who hire me to help them run programs and write proposals. I said, look, you need to mention that you're utilizing this curriculum and actually go ahead and use it. It's going to make your life easier. Okay. So please become a free member of NEC. And Luis, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us and talk about curriculum. And also Donna, thank you so much for helping us set up. And also Leah, can do it without them. Y'all have a great rest of the day. This will be on our YouTube channel probably sometime tomorrow. Okay. But please follow up with us. Thanks, Luis. Thanks, everyone. Y'all have a great afternoon. Take care. Bye, Luis.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.